Next on Currents News, action to end the chaos outside a Brooklyn church. Postal trucks took over the sidewalks and streets. Currents News first brought you the story. The latest is next. For the first time since the world learned they were trapped in a cave, the schoolboys of Thailand are speaking publicly. We'll hear what they have to say about their ordeal. And the president is pulling no punches as he defends his summit with Vladimir Putin, the commander-in-chief's tough talk at the White House. Plus, remarkable images of Pope Francis as he walks alone at the Vatican. The news starts right now.
It's improved. It's greatly improved.
The deacon of St. Finbar's Parish in Bath Beach, Brooklyn. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Deacon Anthony Favalli describing conditions outside the church where streets were once clogged with post office trucks. Currents News' Tim Harfman first reported the trouble in May. He's here now with the story of the improvements that have happened. Tim, what can you tell us?
Liz, before my original report, Deacon Anthony and other members of St. Finbar Church said their local post office was putting their lives in danger. Since then, they say that the parking problem isn't totally resolved, but for the most part, the Postal Service has delivered. For months, St. Finbar parishioners have been outraged.
It's a slap in the face to the public, you know. That's what it is.
A post office is located on the corner of Benson and 19th Avenues, just a block away from the Bath Beach Church. Parishioners say postal employees were illegally parking around the property.
The post office just felt they had free reign over where they could park.
These pictures are proof. Trucks blocking fire hydrants near the church. But that's not all.
Good morning, St. Finbar's.
Deacon Anthony Favalli says the post office forced services at St. Finbar to be delayed.
We would get funerals. The hearse wouldn't be able to pull up in front of the church. They'd actually have to pull up on the sidewalk.
For our original report in May, the USPS told us they would investigate. Through a phone interview earlier today, a spokesperson said the Postal Service continues to work within the community to be a good neighbor, and that supervisors at the branch instructed employees not to park at the hydrants or block the church.
It's improved. It's greatly improved. As you can see, there is nobody parked here. Normally, there would be a truck here parked 24/7 in front of the hydrant.
During our last visit, trucks were parked on the sidewalk along the post office, causing a hazard to pedestrians. We even noticed 2 trucks blocking nearby hydrants. This morning, the sidewalk and hydrants were clear. However, we did see multiple trucks double parking along 19th Avenue. Paul Pagan lives near St. Finbar Church. He took this photo earlier this month, showing a truck blocking part of an intersection, and says the community and post office have to look out for one another.
We got to work together, you know. Courtesy goes a long way.
And Deacon Anthony admits he has seen trucks block hydrants on other blocks, but for short amounts of time. So Liz, again, it's not perfect, but the situation seems to be improving.
That's really good to hear, Tim. You know what? St. Finbar's pastor, Father Michael Gelfand, he's been at the forefront of this battle from the very, very beginning. Were you able to get his thoughts for this update?
He wasn't available to go on camera today, but he remains outspoken on social media, tweeting about the safety of his parishioners and other Bath Beach residents, Liz.
All right, Tim, thank you so much for that update. President Donald Trump is firing back at critics of his summit with Vladimir Putin. Early this morning, he shot off a tweet writing, "Some people hate the fact that I got along well with President Putin of Russia. They would rather go to war than see this. It's called a Trump derangement syndrome." Then, at a cabinet meeting, he spoke out.
There's been no president ever as tough as I have been on Russia. All you have to do is look at the numbers, look at what we've done, look at sanctions, look at ambassadors not there, look, unfortunately, at what happened in Syria recently. And I think President Putin knows that better than anybody, certainly a lot better than the media. He understands it, and he's not happy about it, and he shouldn't be happy about it, because there's never been a president as tough on Russia as I have been.
Some in Washington have complained Mr. Trump wasn't tough enough with Putin. After the president spoke, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said actions are being taken against the Russians.
We are taking steps to make sure they can't do it again. Unlike previous administrations, this president is actually taking bold action and reform to make sure it doesn't happen again. But he does believe that they would target certainly U.S. elections again.
She added that a number of other issues were addressed at the Helsinki summit, including North Korea and Syria. The 12 young soccer players and their coach who were trapped in a cave in Thailand for over 2 weeks have been released from the hospital. Natasha Chen reports they are speaking out in public for the first time.
Wearing matching soccer jerseys, 12 Thai boys and their 25-year-old coach boarded a van and left a hospital Wednesday. It was their first step back into a new normal after surviving in a flooded cave network for more than 2 weeks. At their first public appearance since the rescue, the coach said they often had group activities after soccer practice. And on June 23rd, he said they went into the cave because some of the boys had never seen inside before.
So everyone agree, that they will go, to Tham Luang.
After about an hour, heavy rains led to rising floodwaters.
And someone shouted whether they were lost or not. The coach insisted that they were not lost because there is only one direction in the cave.
On the 10th day, they heard voices. British divers had found them.
How many of you?
Adun Sanon, the boy who could speak English and communicate for the group, said it was a miracle. A miracle, too, for the parents who did not even know their sons were visiting this cave. One after another, the boys apologized to their families.
I would like to say I'm sorry because I told my parents the wrong cave. And so they probably were searching every cave for me.
This experience teach me, not to live life, carelessly. We truly appreciate it, all of your kindness.
They said the one rescue diver who died during the operation is a hero. The team read messages of gratitude and said they will honor him in the future. Natasha Chen, Currents News.
So wonderful to see all those faces alive. A controversial court order against the Archdiocese of Philadelphia that the church must work with same-sex couples on foster care. Philadelphia hosted the most recent World Families meeting. Now, a federal judge in the city has rejected the church's argument considering LGBT couples for foster placements goes against Catholic teaching. Similar rulings in Boston, San Francisco, and elsewhere ended church participation in adoption services. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh is back on Capitol Hill meeting with Senator Mike Lee this morning. The Catholic judge is hoping to get a thumbs up from enough senators to secure his confirmation. Camila Bernal reports.
Judge Brett Kavanaugh hoping to get a thumbs up from enough senators to secure his confirmation to the Supreme Court.
Judge Kavanaugh is making visits to senators' offices who requested his appearance. It seems to be going smoothly.
Kavanaugh posed for pictures with Republican Senator Ted Cruz, a likely yes vote. Meanwhile, Democrats gathered to express their opposition.
Judge Kavanaugh was handpicked from a list of radical nominees for his strong support for dismantling a woman's right to choose. The president has said it himself. It's a done deed. Roe v. Wade will be repealed, will be overturned.
Their strategy to pressure senators to get a full and fair hearing with women's rights as a priority. It's a strategy that Republicans say will fall short.
The more that people see of Judge Kavanaugh, the more they like him, which has prompted the media to point out that Democrats are really struggling for a message.
Republicans hold a slim 51-49 majority in the Senate and only need 50 votes to confirm. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he believes only a fairly small number of Republicans are genuinely undecided, giving them a likely victory. And in Mitch McConnell's timeline, confirmation hearings for Kavanaugh will take place at the end of August, early September. He expects a confirmation by October 1st, just in time for the Supreme Court's new term. Reporting in Washington, I'm Camila Bernal.
A strong defense of Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity against charges of offering to sell a baby in India. Sister Mary Prima, the Superior General of the religious order, is condemning the alleged actions regarding the child. But she is insisting individual conduct has nothing to do with the Missionaries of Charity. A lay woman and a nun are in custody after a baby from an unmarried mother's home was allegedly offered for sale. Pope Francis's representative in Nicaragua is calling for peace. Archbishop Valdemar Stanislaus Sommertag is appealing in Pope Francis's name to end the violence. The conflict between President Daniel Ortega and the protesters calling for his resignation has claimed the lives of more than 300 people since April. The nuncio placed Nicaragua under the Virgin Mary's protection. The fire is spreading with no end in sight. 13,000 acres of California's Yosemite National Park is being engulfed in wildfire, and next week's dry weather is expected to fan those flames. Andrew Spencer reports as crews rush to snuff out that heat.
The smoke on the horizon carries a lot of anxiety for evacuees.
You always think, is that my house going up right now? Am I seeing the product of my house in the sky?
Ferguson fire has been spreading quickly over the last several days, topping more than 13,000 acres on Tuesday.
This fire has reached a horrible level.
The wildfire burning near Yosemite National Park has been difficult to contain. Firefighters are dealing with very difficult sloped terrain, and the weather has been hot and dry. The sheriff of Mariposa County, California, said the wind calmed a bit on Tuesday, but he was concerned about the forecast.
We're expecting atmospheric conditions changing with a lot of wind coming in.
Crews are working from the air when they can. At times, the thick smoke has kept them grounded.
The steep terrain, the smoking conditions, just getting access to the fire, all challenges that we're facing.
The wildfire claimed the life of 36-year-old Braden Varney over the weekend. A heavy equipment operator, Varney was helping cut fire lines when his bulldozer overturned. I'm Andrew Spencer reporting.
The survivors of the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history are being sued. MGM, who owns the Mandalay Bay Hotel where a shooter killed 58 people at a nearby concert, is filing that lawsuit. They claim that they can't be held accountable for the shooting under the Safety Act. Robert Englot, who represents some of the defendants, says that's not true.
It wasn't meant to provide immunity for a hotel casino who's had woefully inefficient security process that didn't, all the bells and whistles that were going off that they didn't catch.
According to a spokesperson from MGM, the company filed the suit to provide those affected with a timely solution. There's a lot more news headed your way. Becoming a saint is a very democratic process. That's according to one of the experts. His keys to canonization are ahead. And Nelson Mandela, who shared a warm relationship with St. John Paul II, would have been 100 years old today. A look at his legacy. And former President Barack Obama in South Africa for a Mandela remembrance is taken to task by the country's leader. You'll hear what they said to each other coming up. And do you have a story idea? Is something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@desalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. Moments ago, we told you about the Missionaries of Charity and a human trafficking investigation in India. Well, a major crime scandal is also rocking the country. The horrific attack against an 11-year-old girl by a gang of adult men. Nikhil Kumar reports from New Delhi.
There's still shock in the city of Chennai in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu after 17 men were arrested there for allegedly raping an 11-year-old girl. Anger at the accused were clear yesterday when a group of lawyers charged at them as they were exiting court. The men, who range in age from their 20s to their 60s, could potentially face the death penalty. This is after the government here rushed through an emergency law in April introducing capital punishment in rape cases involving minor girls below 12. That measure was in response to growing public outrage here at a string of sexual assaults involving minors. Now, the police say the girl in this latest case suffers from a hearing disability, and she was attacked by men who worked in the building where she lives with her family. They were employed in security and facilities around the building. And the allegation is that they began attacking her in January. Horrific attacks that only came to light this month, a full 6 months later, when the girl informed her family. The fact that this continued for so long raises some serious questions for the authorities, and we've asked the top elected official in Tamil Nadu state, who's responsible for law and order, for comment on this, but we've had no response yet. It all underlines what is a recurring problem here in India, the safety of women and girls. Only in April, this issue prompted nationwide protests, and once again, the government promised action to tackle this problem. But the fact that we keep seeing cases like this, each seemingly more horrific than the last, shows that despite the outrage and official promises, enough just hasn't been done. Nikhil Kumar, New Delhi.
A Jesuit priest who's close to the Pope is taking a new swipe at America. Father Antonio Spadaro sparked controversy a year ago when he and Presbyterian pastor Marcel Figueroa published an article that condemned an alliance between U.S. Catholics and evangelicals as a, quote, ecumenism of hate. Now they've penned a new essay about what they are calling the prosperity gospel. They have written that the prosperity attitude, quote, puts the accent on the faith as a merit to climb the social ladder and is unjust and radically anti-evangelical. Following the Pope's landmark encyclical Laudato Si urging greater care for creation, the Vatican's former top canon lawyer is proposing changes to the church law. Cardinal Francesco Palmeiro wants to insert legal obligations for the care of creation into the universal canon law that governs all Catholics. He is suggesting the proposal be submitted to the Holy Father. A cause for canonization is a long and arduous process that bishops and archbishops personally undertake. Our own Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, is overseeing the cause for civil rights activist and Brooklyn priest Monsignor Bernard Quinn. Melissa Butz gives us an inside look into what it takes to become a saint.
According to the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, the canonization process is one of the most democratic processes in the Church, since it's completely begun by recommendations by the Church faithful of the person's holiness.
I like to say that a saint has two eyes, the eye for imitation and the eye for intercession. Once the bishop has determined that the faithful is convinced of this imitatableness, if you will, and then has the confirmation that prayers have been answered through the intercession of these individuals, he can start a process. He can start the cause.
This diocesan phase entails a request to the congregation, collecting testimonies for and against the potential saint, and appointing a postulator to follow the development of the process.
It's a collegial process in which many men and women of expertise are called to express their opinion. And then finally here in the congregation, after the diocesan or the local bishops or the eparchs have collected all the evidence for and against the canonization, the congregation studies and then makes recommendations to the Holy Father, who alone has the final decision to beatify and canonize.
These include the requirement of 2 miracles by the intercession of the saint. One must be confirmed before the saint's beatification, and another still before his or her canonization. If the first or second does not take place, the process cannot continue.
The Lord chooses some, and only He knows why, and gives special charisms or gifts at that particular moment in the history of the Church to, if you will, like signposts on a road, how to get to heaven.
Thus, it is these charisms that lead to the 2 eyes, the desire to imitate and to ask for the intercession of the person. Both of these are the keys to unlock the process of canonization. At the Vatican, Melissa Butz, Currents News.
Not quite a saint. However, Nelson Mandela is considered a global symbol for the cause of human rights. Today would have been his 100th birthday. The late political leader's decades-long fight against South Africa's apartheid system of racial segregation and discrimination earned him the Nobel Prize. He earned the admiration of St. John Paul II. The South African served as the country's president from 1994 to 1999. Mandela's contribution to world peace so impactful, in 2009, the United Nations General Assembly declared July 18th Nelson Mandela International Day. Still to come on Currents News, an out-of-this-world discovery. A bunch of new moons are spotted in outer space, and we'll tell you about them. And the story of Pope Francis's solitary stroll along the cobblestone streets of the Vatican. We'll be right back. Scientists have some new knowledge about the largest planet in our solar system. Astronomers say there are a dozen more moons orbiting Jupiter than previously thought. That brings the planet's total to 79 moons. Among those new satellites, 11 are considered normal. The other one, named after an obscure Roman goddess, is going in the opposite direction. The police never gave up the faith that they could solve a murder that was decades old. Generation after generation, the investigators pursued the killer. Angelica Robinson talked with the detectives in Fort Wayne after an arrest was made.
It's a day they will never forget.
It never left us.
I still have April's picture above my desk.
April 1st, 1988, 8-year-old April Tinsley went missing.
Every squad car available was checking the neighborhoods. We were checking alleys.
Her body found days later in a ditch along a road in southern DeKalb County. And the story of April's tragic death tugged at the heartstrings of the community.
They should be able to walk a block away from their house, you know, and that's why I think any of the detectives that I worked with or had any dealings with, you know, there was no question about it. They head to the nose of the grindstone and let's get it solved.
All total, 3 generations of detectives worked the case. Former Fort Wayne Police Detective Dan Camp inherited the Tinsley case from former detectives Gary Grant and Danny Jackson 2 years after the investigation began. And while John D. Miller's name never appeared on Fort Wayne PD's suspect list, Camp says Miller fits the profile of the suspected killer.
Every bit alike the person that I would say was capable of doing such things.
How he was able to stay off the police radar these past 3 decades remains a mystery.
The old adage was, if more than one person knows about a secret, it's not a secret anymore. Evidently, Mr. Miller kept it secret.
But authorities say the advances in technology and the presence of DNA evidence ultimately sealed his fate.
Something good has happened, you know, that it should have happened a long, long time ago.
Something that you weren't going to forget, and I hope we can just have the closure and the satisfaction of a job well done by these guys.
As for that picture hanging above former Detective Grant's desk,
The picture will stay up until the conviction, and then I'd like to put it back in the rest of my files as a closed case.
Angelica Robinson reporting from Fort Wayne, Indiana. In South Africa, a slight, albeit lighthearted, difference of opinion. The country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, acknowledging former President Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela are alike in many ways, with one glaring exception, a comparison Mr. Obama disputes.
Much as there are many similarities, there is one area where President Obama cannot match Madiba. Unfortunately, he cannot dance as well as Madiba can dance. Let me begin by a correction and a few confessions. The correction is that I am a very good dancer.
The pair jokingly referring to a clip of the Obamas dancing the tango at a state dinner in Argentina. Finally tonight, the Holy Father has garnered a reputation for traveling to places outside his busy schedule. Well, a video going viral shows Pope Francis in an interesting place. Seen here is the pontiff just roaming the streets around the Vatican this morning. No guards or advisors around him. In fact, no one seems to notice that the Pope is there at all. Francis wouldn't be the first Pope to sneak a morning stroll. Pope John XXIII reportedly left the walled city twice, dodging the Vatican police to go for a walk. He likes his solitude. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.